Good morning. It's my great pleasure to see so many teachers here today attending our webinar. Thank you so much for being interested in registering and arranging your time to attend our very first webinar. All right. My name is Tran, and I'm the initiator of the series of professional development or PD webinars exclusive to Vietnamese K-12 teacher of English in Vietnam. Okay, sorry, I forgot to share my slide here. All right. So the webinar is exclusive to teachers of English at kindergarten to grade 12 throughout Vietnam using the new textbook series. And our organizing committee consists of 5 members, as you can see on the slide. That is me, a lecturer at Hanoi National University of Education, or HNUE, Miss Thi Mai Hương from Thái Nguyên University, and Miss Đỗ Thị Phương Mai, my colleague at HNUE, Mr. Trần Quang Nam, Ho Chi Minh University of Education, and Miss Ngọc Anh from Banking Academy of Vietnam. All right. And it's a great honor to receive the support, consultants, and guidance from the Board of Directors and the Board of Secretaries, Viettiso Association, or VTA, and Regional English Language Office, or RELO, US Embassy Hanoi, Vietnam, as well as the sponsorship from VTI, RELO, Longman, Pearson, Vietnam, ISET, Cleveland, Hanoi, and Talking English. Our motto is empowering teachers, inspiring learners, and promoting teaching and learning. And further information about the purposes of the PD webinars can be found on the website of VTA. And there are 4 main themes of the webinar series, including English language teaching methodology using information technology in ELT, testing and assessment, and professional development. The topics, day and time of the webinars are decided based on the needs of the teachers via a national survey and expertise of the organizing committee. On the slide are the topics and the time, the agenda of the very first 5 webinars organized from August 2019 to April 2020. And I'm also the moderator of the webinars today. Let me introduce some overall information about the webinar. The topic of the webinar is teaching integrated skills. And our presenter today is Dr. Ha Van Sinh. Thank you so much, Dr. Ha Van Sinh, for being our presenter today. And we also invite several facilitators from universities and also schools to encourage the interactions with the K-12 teachers participants. Dr. Linh is our main facilitator who has been supporting Dr. Ha Van Sinh during the past 2 months to prepare for the webinar. It's a great honor to have participation of 2 other university lecturers, Miss Lê Thu Hằng and Miss Nguyễn Thị Thu Thao, and 2 K-12 teachers, Mr. Đỗ Mạnh Cương and Miss Pham Thi Hai Ngoc. Thanks all the participants and the facilitators for attending the webinars today. And to all the participants, please feel free to interact with our facilitators during the webinars and after the webinars for follow-up activities. Join our PD webinar today are also other organizing members, that is Miss Thi Mai Hương as the secretary of this webinar and Miss Trịnh Ngọc Anh. And after this introduction, Dr. Ha Van Sinh will share his experience related to teaching integrated skills, followed by a discussion between the facilitators and the speaker. If the participants have any other questions or ideas during the webinar, please take note and send them to the Q&A section and suggestions for follow-up activities. Finally, I'll give a brief summary of this webinar and provide several information on the next webinar. After participating in the 90-minute webinar today, participants may be eligible to receive an electronic certificate. At the end of the section, we will provide a short quiz for participants to verify their attendance at the webinar. And then after being verified by the PD Webinar Organizing Committee, participants will receive an email with an e-certificate. After each live webinar, the sharing materials and recording will be available on the Vietnamese Association webinar. Now, I think it's high time to move on to the sharing from Dr. Ha Van Sinh. And please, Dr. Ha Van Sinh.
Oh, hello, everybody. So I will click the share button, right?
Yes.
Okay. Share button. Share here. And...
Yeah.
Okay.
Did you see that?
Yeah.
Okay, so shall I start now?
Yeah, sure. Please.
Oh, good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
It is a great pleasure for me, but actually I am overexcited just because this is the first time in my life talking to a group of participants without seeing their faces. Okay, well, I think that the topic of our talk today is teaching integrated skills, why and how. Actually, there's nothing new about this one, but I guess it will be a very good opportunity for us to have a look at some basic foundation of the issue. And the most important thing is to have a look at our school textbook to see how the development of communication skills through teaching integrated skills can be seen from our textbook that being used at our school. Okay, I'd like to start with the definition from Cambridge English Dictionary. And as you can see from here, we say combining two or more things in order to become more effective. So it means that we try to combine more than two skills so that our teaching will be more effective. I'd like you to have a look at the four pictures here. We have them A, B, C, and D. Which one do you think is what we can say integrated?
C, B, C, and D.
Okay, you see that it's obvious that A is something not integrated, and we said it is a discrete. We can say that it is a kind of speaking skill. For example, the boy in the picture is speaking to someone, but without listening to them. So that is something discrete, not integrated. And if you have a look at B, we have four things here, and it could be the four skills, and they are integrated. Or in picture C, we see that is a kind of integration between the language system and the language skills. And in D, that could be an integration of the four skills. Okay, so what we are talking about today is about the integration of the four skills. All right, and I'd like to start with an abstract from an article written by Akram and Malik in 2010. They have something, they said the integration of the four language learning skills, and with the argument that any language can be taught in isolation. We must integrate the four skills to produce proficient users of that language. So that is the idea, and I think I'd like to start with this so that we can have a better idea of what integrated skills teaching is. Okay, so there are four questions. I'm going to provide the answers for today. The first one is looking at the skills integrated approach. What is it? Kind of very basic definition of this one. And then why and when should we teach integrated skills? The third question is looking at the practical aspect of integrated skill at school, how to design and how to implement a lesson or an activity to improve the integrated skills. And finally, talking about the qualities a teacher needs for successful integrated skills lessons. So these are the 4 questions I'm going to share with you. But before I start, I would like you to have some minute sharing the idea with your friend, giving a very brief answer to these 4 questions. Okay, so please. Okay, I like to have a look. How can I look at the chat to see?
Yeah, Dr. Ha Van Sinh,
yes.
do we need to answer the first question or all 4 questions now?
All 4 questions. Just a very quick thinking about these 4 questions before I can start. Just very briefly.
Yeah. So please, all the participants, please type in the chat box what you think about these 4 questions. Any ideas that come to your mind? Dr. Khanh, Linh, do you have any idea now?
Yeah, I'm typing.
You can talk. You can talk
Okay.
You can share now.
Yeah, so for the first question, I think skills integrated approach is an approach to teaching in which whatever we teach to the students requires a combination of different skills: listening, reading, speaking, writing, but in such a way that it can reflect our real life tasks. It doesn't mean that we have to teach to have to combine all 4 skills in one lesson, but combine in such a way that it looks or it sounds natural.
I think that's a great answer from Dr. Linh. Okay, so just actually a few questions, and just because we don't have enough time for a very long discussion, so I would like to come straight to the point. So actually, when how can I? Okay, so actually, when I raise these 4 questions, I'm looking at the 2 main ideas of the presentation this morning. So the first 2 questions are related to an overview of skills integrated approach. And the second question is an opportunity for us to look at some practical classroom activities so that we can know how to design and how to run an activity or discussion for the integrated skills. Okay, so the answer to the first question is, it is related to CLT, as mentioned by Dr. Linh. We say CLT and the ultimate goal of real-life communication. And we all know that the ultimate goal of communicative language teaching is to prepare our students for their real-life communication outside the classroom. And as you can see from the definition from Brown, and he says that an approach to language teaching methodology that emphasizes authenticity, interaction, student-centered learning, task-based activities, and communication for the real world, meaningful purposes. I like to focus on this idea, communication for the real world and meaningful purposes. That is the ultimate goal of CLT. Okay, so if you have a look at the screen here, you can see I put 4 events, A, B, C, and D as the initial events. And then we have the following events here, 1, 2, 3, and 4, for example. What I would like you to do now is to match the first event, A, to one of the following events, so that we can see that in our real life, one skill is not enough for us to communicate with the other speakers. So in A, we can see that, for example, that we receive a gas bill, and we are terrified just because we see that the bill is very high. So you read with horror a very high bill. So what is the follow-up event, in your opinion?
I can see that lost teacher typing 3A here.
Right, I can see.
3A B1 from Miss.
We are talking about A. We receive a very high gas bill. We read that with aura. And what do you think we would do next? Okay, we see that the answer is number 3. We need to speak to the gas company representative on the phone, or we could come there face-to-face meeting, asking about why the gas bill is very high, like that one. Okay, so A is an example of the combination of different skills in our life if we're really communicating with someone. All right, so we still have a B, C, D, and 1, 2, and 4. So very quickly, could you please match the events B, C, and D to the rest of the follow-up events 1, 2, and 4? So 30 seconds for you to do that.
B1. B1.
D1. Okay, go
B1,
on, everyone.
B, not G.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, you can type to the chat room. Dr. Ha Van Sinh, I can see that all of the teachers attending the webinar today are very smart. They're providing the answers to all the questions.
Oh, that's great.
Even when you
Okay.
are explaining the first question, you are talking about 3A, and then they provide the answers to all the question B, C, and D now.
Oh,
They're very
okay.
quick. Wonderful.
So let's see, this is our answer, right? We wrote a note to a colleague requesting a meeting to discuss the problem. And then actually we need to listen to their proposed solution face to face, okay? And C, we spoke to a learner about his absence, and then the learner provide you with an excuse from the doctor, and you have to read that. All right, and D, you receive an invitation to go to a party, and then you make arrangement for that. You have to call to speak to a babysitter, asking her to come and take care of your baby so that you can participate in the party. So we see that in our real life, we cannot communicate with only one skills. We need to combine 2 or more skills to make our communication more effective. All right, so answering the question why, we can see that real life communication requires an integration of skills. So that the basic thing that we did talk about that. So we come to the idea of when we should teach integrated skills. So if you have a look at this one, you can see that whenever we are preparing for our teaching, it could be a lesson activity, we need to think about the objectives of our lesson. So if the objective lesson is to develop the learner language system, vocabulary or pronunciation or grammar, then we are thinking about the PPP approach and task-based language learning. And if we say that we are going to teach the language skill, then we need to think about whether the skills we are teaching is kind of productive or receptive skill. It is a macro skill, and then what are the related micro skills? Okay, and then we are thinking about, we will focus on one discrete skill or an integration of the other skill. All right, so then we get back to the definition of CLT, and we see that communicative language teaching focus on the integration of skills so that we can have the more effective communication. And then in designing a lesson activity for developing integrated skills, we often talk about a 3-stage lessons. And I guess that this kind of technical term is familiar to many of you. We are talking about pre, while, and post step. So if you are teaching a listening lesson, then we need to prepare a pre-listening activity, and then while listening activity, and then post-listening activity. Okay, so I think that's the answer to the two questions, integrated approach, what is it, and why and when should we teach integrated skills? Now, the answer, as a sum up, the ultimate goal of CLT is a real-life communication, and then real-life communication requires integration of skills. And if we want to combine 2 or more skills, we need to think about a 3-stage lesson with the pre and why and post activities. Okay, so I just finished the idea with the first main point, skills integrated approach and overview. Now I would like to move to the second main point for today, that is the practical classroom activities for successful skills integrated lessons. Okay, the question is how to design and implement the skills integrated lesson or activity. I'd like you to have a look at an example here from the textbook more. All right, and you can see that we have 2 activities, 7 and 8. Is 7 asking us to listen to the radio program and then number, and 8 listening and correct each sentence. So my question to you is whether it is a discrete or an integrated activity. 30 seconds for you. Discrete or integrated, if we have a look at activity 7 and 8 in this listening lesson.
I think it's great.
Okay, yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but please mute your microphone if you are listening to the speaker so that it cannot create the noise to others. Thank you so much. And please type your answer into the chat room. Thank you so much. Yeah, so this is discrete or
yes,
some answer like, yeah.
All right, I think I've got very interesting answer here. Someone say integration, and someone said that is a combination of listening and reading. All right, thank you for your idea. Just put our position into the position of learners here. If we want to do 7 and 8 here, we have to listen. And we have to do the task. We don't have any kind of preparation for that, right? And actually, this is the own version of the textbook more, and it is a more of discrete skills development rather than integration. And as you can see from this one, that is an example of what we call discrete. And some of you may suggest that it's a combination between listening and reading. Then it depends on how the teacher work on the activity. But if you have a look at the textbook here, we can see that it is a kind of discrete one because focusing on the listening skills. Okay, another activity here, and if we see the title is the reading, and with exercise number 1, read the text and answer to question. And exercise number 2, read the text again and complete the table. Again, we say read the text and read the text again. So it is very clear that again, it is a kind of discrete, only focusing on reading. All right, and then we have another one from our textbook being used in our school context now. Tiếng Anh 9. All right, and we see this. They have a 4 question. Question number 1. Do you recognize the Vietnamese astronaut in these photos? Discuss with a partner what you know about him. And in question number 2, the learners will read the text and do the 2 exercises here. And number 3, they discuss with their partners. And number 4, involved in a problem-based activity, working harmoniously. You are encouraged. Certainly these problems happen. Work with your crew members to solve them. So do you think that these are discrete or integrated?
All the participants, please type your answer into the chat room so that we can see.
Yes, I can see the answer integrated in here. Okay, so it is very obvious that There is an integrated skills lesson. Number one is the pre-reading, giving us a chance to prepare for what we are going to read. And then we have the two exercises in number two, and they are while reading activities. And then the follow-up speaking with exercise 3 and 4, that is a kind of post reading activities where the screen will continue talking about the topic here. So it is a kind of integrated skills, reading, listening, and speaking, with the focus one is the reading. Okay. So answering the question how to design, implement a skills integrated lesson activity, we see that we need to conduct the activity with the 3 stages, pre, while, and post. And if we do like this one, we will give our students a chance to develop their real life communication skills, and with the expectation that they will become more proficient users of English. And for me, I think that most important thing is that if we use the pre, while, and post activities in our lesson, we create a very good opportunity for our students to be involved in the interaction between we teachers and the student. And also the teacher will need to have an opportunity to create and sustain and enhance the interaction between the teachers and the student, and even among the students themselves. Okay, so continue talking about the question how, we see that we have a pre, we have a while, and we have a post. And for me, I think the pre-skills activities are very important, because actually that is the stage for us to prepare our students for the activity. Imagine that the teacher gives you a task, asks you to read immediately, and the most difficult one is to read, to listen to something and answer the question without any kind of preparation. And it makes the activity, the reading and listening activities harder and harder for the students. But if we have the pre-skills activity like this one, we see that our students will have a chance to know the reason why they have to listen, or to read, to speak, or to write, or interest or integrate our learners into a topic, right? Involve learners by providing them a chance to talk about the ideas, to generate ideas, to provide them with knowledge about the topic, or introduce the learners to the background information of the topic. Or we can take this as an opportunity for us to pre-teach or to introduce some vocabulary related to the listening text or the reading text. Or we get the learners communicating about the topic, or then we provide the links between different stages of the lesson. So in my opinion, pre-skills activities are very, very helpful preparation to our students in developing the integrated skills of our students. And I'd like to show you some of the ideas from Tanner and Green. Here we have the author suggests some kind of pre-listening activities, for example, using the pictures, or personalizing, or predicting the vocabulary, predicting the facts, or practicing the tenses. So when conducting these pre-listening activities, the student will have a lot of opportunity to get familiar and to get to know more about what they are supposed to read, to listen. And then the skills practice here, we see that they can use writing or speaking or listening. So that is really a chance for students to combine different skills in the communication. Or for pre-speaking activities, they have eliciting the ideas, listening to a dialogue, using the keywords, or using the photographs. And you see that the skills involved here give the student a chance to practice different kinds of communication skills, rather only one thing. Okay, so I'd like you to have a look at this task. Write about your friend's eating habits. Include information about his or her meals, and your opinion about his or her eating habits and possible changes. So what kind of skill is the focus one, do you think, in here? Writing?
Yes.
Okay, so this is a kind of writing task. And my question to you all is, we are going to have a look at 3 activities. And I want you to read the activities and to tell me whether these are pre-writing activities. and relevant to the writing task we've just mentioned. We have an A, for example. The teachers ask the student to work in pairs and ask and answer questions about each other's eating habits and then take notes. Do you think this one is a good preparation for the student to get into the task, writing about a friend's eating habits?
Yeah, I think so.
Yes? Okay, right. And then we have a look at B. We have a look at B. Again, the question is whether this pre-writing activity is suitable for the writing task or not.
This is integrated, but quite egocentric as well.
Yeah, but I think it's an interesting activity.
All right. We ask the student to work in pairs, look at the picture, and tell your friend the differences between you and the boys in the picture. So when doing that, we see that we give the student a chance to generate ideas and also having some examples. And then it's also a chance for the teacher to pre-teach some kind of vocabulary so that the teacher can use the student can use in writing their tasks. And finally, you have a C, asking the student to listen to the radio program about teenagers' eating habits and decide if the following statements are true or false. So, is it a good preparation?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, so we see that it is not a kind of activity, but it is a wow activity because the student have to listen and do the task. Okay, now I'd like to talk more on other activities. Talk about what you would like to do most on holiday and why. And I think it is obvious that it is a speaking task. And again, we are going to look at 3 activities and to see whether they are suitable for the speaking task or not. So 1 minute for you to read the 3 activities here, A, B, and C, and say whether these pre-speaking activities are suitable to the speaking task or not.
I think B is a good activity. Yeah.
Okay. Right. In B, we ask the student to work in pairs, look at the picture, and tell their friend how much they know about it. A good preparation, right, for them talking about holiday, because the picture also gives them some ideas about somewhere that they can enjoy their holiday. What do you think about A? Read the passage and make the list of advantages and disadvantages of this adventure holiday, exploring a cave. And if we see that if the learners read the passage and they have to make the list of advantages and disadvantages of this adventure holiday, again, they will have a chance to prepare, to make arrangements, and to have some kind of experience from some information of passage to provide them with information for their speaking. Okay, and in C, listen to the 2 boys talking about why they enjoy the holiday together in Quang province. Do you think that this activity is also a good preparation for their speaking task? They have to listen to the 2 boys talking about why they enjoy. Okay.
I think for a week class, C would be good to provide some models for the kind of language that they need to use.
Okay, yeah, that's true. Because when the 2 boys are talking about their holidays, it also provides a model idea for our learners to talk about their own holiday. Yes, so we see that A, B, and C here are all suitable as a pre-speaking activities because they provide them with background information, model, or kind of brainstorming ideas so that the student can start with their speaking task. Okay, so that is about the pre. Now we talk about the wows. I think for the why skills activities, you are very familiar to all the tasks and the question like reading, we have a skimming or scanning, we have close information transfer or making inferences. listening, we have listening for gist, for details, listen, complete a picture, listen to match pictures with description. And then for speaking, it depends on whether it is a guided writing or process writing or unguided writing. For speaking, we have a role play, a real play, discussion, and many other different tasks with the wide skills activities. And these wide skills activities can be seen very clearly in almost on the textbook. Okay. Now, talking about the post skills activity. For reading, after the reading, we can ask the student to retell the story if the reading passage is about the story, or rewrite the story, or have a discussion of the reading, right? And for listening, if that is a dialogue, we can ask the student to make a similar dialogue or discussion about the argument or the idea of dialogue, or ask them to write a review. And then for speaking, we can ask them to write a similar conversation, for example. And then for the writing, we can ask them to give an oral presentation, the writing, or they have a peer reading. So if we conduct all these post-skills activities, and again, we give the student a chance to make best use of information they got from the wild task, and to continue developing the other skills related to the idea they got from the wild tasks. Okay, now let's get back to this one. As we talked from the very beginning, this is an example of what we call not integrated, discrete, because we ask our student to listen immediately and to do the task. Now, what I would like you to do very quickly is to try to design one pre and one post listening activity for number 7 or 8. Okay?
Yeah, all the participants, please think about the pre and post activities for this while listening. And please type into the chat room, please. Thank you. What do you think, Dr. Linh?
Wow. I'm thinking of how to make it suitable to the level. Yeah.
Yeah.
Listen again.
Any cue from
maybe pictures, and then talk about some adjectives. No, what's the card? Before. Some nouns, some adjective, or whatever words related to the pictures first.
Mm-hmm.
But
interesting.
But if they don't talk, this is about vocabulary only. It's not about skills.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's ideas from our participants here.
Oops, sorry.
Wow.
We see.
Yeah, lots of interesting ideas here.
Right, guessing the order and talk about the city. Okay, discuss in pairs in group. Describe what they see in. All right, I think that actually the participant shows me that they are kind of experienced teachers in teaching integrated skills. And I think that my suggested idea is very similar to the idea from the participants. For example, yes, we can ask the student to look at the pictures and to predict the facts. And here, Liverpool, for example, we can ask them to think about whether it is a city in somewhere, right? In Africa, or in America, or in a specific country, giving them an idea to prepare for their listening, right? So students in groups or in pairs describe what they see in each picture, name of the landmark, and then talking about the location, the country, and national cuisine. So giving them a chance to talk about the cuisine in these specific countries. And with a post, we can ask them to write a talk about their own city. And then giving them the task like, okay, when you talk about your city, focusing on the eating habits there, the street cafes and restaurants. And they can make best use of the information that they pick up from the listening text for improving either writing or speaking after this listening piece, right? Okay, and then we also have the task that we mentioned with the discrete skills development with the reading here. Again, we try to design one pre and one post activities. I don't know whether we have still have a time for the participants to talk about this one, Miss Tran, or let me see.
Yeah.
So you have time?
So,
okay, so I like to put forward my suggestion for this one, an example. Okay, we can give our students a chance to elicit the ideas and practice some vocabulary. Piercing, I think it could be kind of difficult word for many of our students. So then we can start by asking the question: do you have pierced ears? All right, then the student will have a chance to touch their ears somewhere, and then say, oh no, or yes, and then many students don't know about that. We can take the opportunity to practice vocabulary. And then asking them what part of the body may many young learners have pierced: the tongue, the rib, the navel, and then asking why. So giving them a chance to have some ideas about piercing before they read the text. And after they finish with the exercise 1 and 2 here, we can ask them, involve them in the post-reading activity like a discussion, improving their speaking at the presentation, discussion of your people's piercing. And we can ask them to be involved in the project work, piercing in Africa, or piercing in Vietnam, or piercing in ethnic groups in Vietnam. Right? So I think that we have created a good opportunity for them to combine the all 4 skills with this kind of integrated activities. Okay, so as a sum up, talking about practical classroom activities for successful skills integrated lessons, we need to design our lesson with the 3 stages, the pre, while, and post, like this one. Okay, and I like to talk about some of the advantages of the integrated skills from the authors you can see from the University of Oregon on the screen. Number 1, if we conduct or we design, we implement a 3-stage lesson like this one, the student will have a chance to improve their integrated skills because each skill reinforces the other skills. And the second reason is that the student will have an opportunity for authentic communication, for real language, for social interactions, and it will create an active and interesting classroom in which all the students are very motivated. And finally, the combination of different skills like that allows students plenty of practice in the classroom. Okay, I'd like to move to the last part of the presentation, talking about the qualities. What qualities does a classroom teacher need to have for a successful integrated skills lesson? And then, first of all, that is awareness. If we have a clear idea about what skills integrated approach is, then we can design and we can implement an integrated skills lesson. So first of all, we need to have a full awareness of skills integrated approach. Next one, we need to be flexible and creative. We all know that as teachers in our schools often complain about the rigid curriculum. They have to do what the curriculum asks them to do and leave no space or time for them to adapt the textbook. So in order to do this one, the teachers need to be very flexible and need to be very creative in designing and implementing the lesson. And next one is classroom management. It depends a lot on the classroom management skills. I'm going to give you an example later on about this one. And then the ability to create and sustain natural interaction. We say we combine the 4 skills so that we help our students to be more proficient user. And then in the classroom, actually the communication between the teacher and the student is actually real communication. And then the role of the teacher is to create and sustain natural interaction from the very beginning of the lesson. So this is also one of the very important qualities a teacher needs to have. Proficiency in English, that's for sure, okay? If we need to have a natural interaction, then the proficiency level, the teacher needs to be good enough to create and to sustain a natural interaction. Okay, so these are the qualities that the teacher needs to have. Now, I'd like you to give you an example of what we say the qualities of the teacher. And this is a lesson extract from the 5 lesson produced by the British Council We don't have time to watch the video clip, but if you pay attention to what is on the blackboard, you can see that the teachers in this lesson conducted the lesson in this way. First, the new words, and then asking the student to listen and check the years, and then listen again and mark true or false. And finally, the teacher asked the student to work in groups of 4, think of a movie they have watched, then give their friends and other groups some clues for them to guess the name of the movie they are thinking about. So if you have a look at the stages lesson like that, we see that it is kind of integrated with something like a pre-teach vocabulary in the new word, and then while listening, asking them to listen and check, listen and mark true or false. And then the post one, that is also a discussion or a talk with this kind of group work. So actually, this is what the teacher wanted to do, is to implement an integrated skills approach. But if you have a look at the way she started the lesson from the very beginning, she started by writing new words on the board, and then write the new words, explain the new words. And if she did like this one, you see that she didn't create and sustain a kind of natural interaction from the very beginning. If I were the teacher, what I would do is to ask the student to watch a movie, a very short extract, and study from that. And while watching and discussing, she could also pre-teach some vocabulary items for this one. So it makes the lesson more natural with the interaction. Okay, and another example like this one, this is what I observed from one of the teachers. She started the lesson by asking the student to answer the question, how many good friends do you have? And there's the numbers of friends make a difference to your life. The students have a chance to interact with each other, asking and answering. And then they are going to read the text very carefully and prepare the 4 questions, working together, preparing the 4 questions. And if they want to have these 4 questions, they have to read the text very carefully. Okay, and finally, the teacher wants the student to walk around, raise the question to the other groups. Again, we can see that this is the post-reading activity, but with a lot of interaction from the student. So chance for interaction, with this one is an example of what I really want to say, that is a very necessary quality of teacher if he or she wants to conduct an integrated skills lesson. Okay, so I've just finished talking about teaching integrated skills lesson, why and how. And I'd like to sum up the answer to the 4 questions: what, why, and when. The answer is, that is the integration of the 4 language learning skills. And because we really want to prepare our students for real life communication. And designing implemented a skills integrated lesson, we need to think about a 3-stage lesson with pre, while, and post skills activities, giving students a chance to use different skills. And finally, the qualities like awareness, English proficiency, ability to adapt textbook, create with creativity, flexibility, classroom management, ability to create and sustain interaction. These are the qualities that a teacher needs to have for conducting an integrated skills lesson. Okay, so I like to finish the presentation by getting to the starting of this presentation by asking you to look at this abstract again, talking about the integration of 4 language learning skills, and with its very strong argument that any language can be taught in isolation. We must integrate the 4 skills to produce proficient users of that language. And for those who are using the textbook assigned by our government at school now, you can see that most of our textbooks are designed from the integrated skills lesson. Okay, so thank you very much for your listening, and I think it's time for us to have some discussion or question and answer. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Dr. Ha Van Sinh, for very wonderful, useful, and practical sharing. And all the participants, please, if you have any questions to our presenter, just type your question to Miss Cuong secretly so that she can keep record of all of your questions, and we will go back to that Q&A section. And now it's time to move on to the discussion between the speaker and other facilitators. Mute this one. Okay. All right. Now, first we will start with the question from Dr. Khanh Linh. Dr. Khanh Linh, do you have any question to our presenter, Dr. Ha Van Sinh, today?
Yes, thank you, Tran. And Mr. Ha Van Sinh, can I have a question about something practical in our classroom? Yeah, I find that my students need to pass important exams. And in the exams, we have tests consist of several multiple choice question items, focusing on grammar and vocabulary. So even though I'm very interested in, and I'm in favor of the skills, the integrated approach, I'm still concerned about the feasibility of teaching integratively. And I think that to some extent, sometimes I may need to sacrifice skills altogether to prepare my students for exams. What do you think?
Okay. Well, I think that is a very practical question, and from my experience, I also received a lot of concern from the school teachers about this one. Actually, I've got a scanned copy of the textbook. So can I share that and talk about this one, which is related to the question raised by Dr. Linh? So Tran, can I share the slide now?
Yeah.
I think this is still shared.
All right, let's see.
Still share on the slide now.
12, Unit 2, Urbanization, you mean that one?
Yes, this is it.
I can still see it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Everybody, can you see that? So if you have a look at this one, you see this is an example of the school textbook, and on the left corner, the top, you see the word language here. So you can see that this part is the part of lesson focusing on the language system rather than skill. Okay, and then we see that when we talked about skills integrated approach, we are talking about the objective of developing learners' language skills, not language. But then in our textbook at school, we have some kind of parts related to the teaching the language system. And many of the exercises you see that are also similar to the exam question. So if you have a look at this one, what you can see, actually, if the textbook is about language development, then we need to know that the exercises in the textbook are related to the process of teaching. It could be vocabulary or pronunciation or grammar. For in vocabulary here, for example, when we see that this is the first P, that is the presentation stage, and then the use of the definition for presenting the vocabulary, and the follow-up. Number 2, we see that is the second P, providing the student a chance to practice in the context. With this one, for compound adjectives, that is the first P, explanation of the formation of the compound adjective here, and then it's come to the second P, providing the student with the context for practicing the compound adjective. Also with the pronunciation here, we see that is the contextual and focused phonemes here in the conversation. That is also a kind of presentation state in teaching pronunciation. And here you can see that the second P, practice again. So with the textbook like this one, we see that the question, it is also related question, can we teach integratively in a language-focused class? And the answer is yes. The answer is yes. And then we need to do the adaptation of textbook. And I like to continue with the idea, a very specific idea like this one. If we want to teach this one, and if we also want to integrate both language and skills, that is what we can do. So if we have a look at question number 1, the textbook authors ask students to match the words in the conversation with appropriate definition. Before we ask the student to do the task here, we can get back to the conversation the student learned previously. And we can use the conversation here is the context for presenting the vocabulary for reviewing the vocabulary. And then we can ask the student to look at the picture here. Okay, everybody look at picture, and this picture is an illustration of what that you can see in 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. And then we may have the answer that is about urbanization, like this one. So if we can adapt the exercise in the textbook is this one, we can both give the student a chance to improve their skills through the natural interaction between us and the student. And at the same time, the student have a chance to get access to get familiarized with the exam questions or exam task type. Okay, so I think, again, the natural interaction between us and the student and the ability to adapt the textbook with flexibility will give us a chance to deal with the problem mentioned in the 2 questions. Okay, that's the answer.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ha Van Sinh, just mentioning adaptation. And I hope that Dr. Khanh is happy with the answer from Dr. Ha Van Sinh. And now please move on to the sharing from real teaching experience from our K-12 teacher today, that is Miss Pham Thi Hai Ngoc. Please share with us your wonderful work in adapting the textbook to teach your students. Yeah. Miss Pham Thi Hai Ngoc, please.
Yes.
Dr. Ha Van Sinh, please. I'm sorry, Dr. Ha Van Sinh, please
yes.
stop your sharing.
Okay.
We can move on to the sharing from the screen of Miss Pham Thi Hai Ngoc. Yeah.
Okay.
Please start. Thank you.
Yeah. Sorry, okay.
Yeah, just wait for a while. Yep. Yeah. Okay.
Everyone see? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good morning, everyone. Today, I would like to share my adaptation of the new textbook. I say my series sharing on the textbook 11th, Unit 9, City of the Future reading. Can you hear me, all of you?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, yes.
As well.
In the textbook. In the textbook, we have 3 parts. Okay, I can decide 3 parts: pre-reading, while reading, and post-reading. For the first, before going to the lesson, I have the warm-up activity. For the warm-up activity, I ask the student what videos. Okay, I made it. And answer 2 questions. What is the video about, and what can you see in the videos? Yeah. Okay. Okay. My purpose is to activate students with the topic of the lesson, and students will get some main ideas, a big picture about what they are going to read. While reading, sorry. In pre-reading, in the textbooks that they have requirements that use dictionary to find the meaning of the words in the box. then complete the sentences with the correct form. But I adapt it, and I adapting into the eliciting and checking vocabulary using picture and situation. Here's my, for example, I find some keywords that students need to know to understand the reading passage. For example, I give a picture, then I set a situation to contextualize, and students based on the picture and situation to guess the words and word meaning. Okay, I choose some other words that students need. For example, some word, for example, sensor or $50. Okay. Here in the checking vocabulary, here is the in the textbook we have 6 questions, 6 statements, and students have to fill in the gap with the. But for my student, I can tell that my students come from the remote and mountainous areas, and they are not good at English. So I have to make it more, make it easier for them to can do it. Here, so I design into 5 questions and 5 statements, and each easier, and they are easier. After checking of the words, and I move to while reading. In while reading, in the textbook, we have 3 parts. Part 2, 3, and 4. In part 2, they ask the student read the text about superstar city and choose the best title for it. And in part 3, they have to read the text again and answer the questions. And in part 4, they complete the following summary about superstar city using the words in the text. We have a reading text about 4 paragraphs and about 300 words. And here in my adaptation, I make it into the competition for students to get involved. I make a situation. You are in a competition to find out who will become citizen of superstar city. Superstar city is a city that students are reading about. And the group with more correct answer will become the city dweller of superstar city. And in this part, I designed the part 2, part 3, and part 4 into 3 parts of the competition. The first part is matching heading. The second part is doing MCQ task. And the third one is gap filling. And I set the rules for the game. To improve student reading skill, here is skimming and scanning. They have to work individually first. Okay. Then I ask them to work in group to share the answer and choose the best answers. Okay. Here, the part 1. In the textbook, we have 3. They ask the student to find the title for only the whole text. But I want my student to get the overview, the main idea of the 4 paragraphs. So I ask them to match. Okay. In battles, I design the question. I design the question and the 4 options A, B, C, D based on the question in statement and create a new one. All my question is pay attention to with the aim to improve student reading skill. For example, student reads for the detail. I give some kind of question, for example, the reference, the negative question, and reading question. And here is some questions that I designed. Okay, can you see it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
After students work individually, they work in group and share their idea. In part 3, in gap filling, I find that the text in the textbook is valuable. So I keep it. A student after reading, they will make a summary. by filling the gap with the suitable words, keywords. In the last part, in the textbook, they ask students a question. Do you think that our city will be like superstar city in the year 2060? Explain the reason. But with my students, okay, they find it difficult to answer it, and they may feel impressed. So I make it into a discussion in group. Talk about a city, the dream city. The dream city in the future, and I pay attention to some factors: its environment, its transport, its infrastructures, and people living conditions. After working group, students will go will choose one or two members from each group to present in front of the class. Okay. That's all my sharing and my adaptation about the reading path in the unit 9, textbook 11. Okay.
Yeah, thank
That's
you so
interesting.
much. Yeah, thank you so much, Miss Pham Thi Hai Ngoc. And now we move on to the next section, that is the Q&A section. And first of all, I'd like to ask Miss Hai Ngoc a question from Miss Các Yến here, I believe. Sorry, from Miss Đào Nga here. That is to Miss Pham Thi Hai Ngoc, whether you can run this adaptation lesson well with your students. That is the question from Miss Đào Nga. Yeah, thank you.
I did it 3 times in 3 different classes, and it was successful. Okay, it's
great.
Yes, my student got enrolled and all the lesson it runs smoothly.
Wonderful. Yeah.
So is this a class in the remote area?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very wonderful work of adapting textbook into more suitable with the level of your students. Yeah. Thank you so much, Miss Pham Thi Hai Ngoc. And you can, to all the participants, you can also interact with all our participants via the forum of Viettiso Association on the website that I already sent the link to your email. So you can feel free to interact more with our speaker and facilitators even after the webinar for the follow-up activities. And now I'd like to move up with the question from Mr. Đỗ Mạnh Cương. Mr. Cuong, are you still there? Mr. Cuong?
Yes.
Yeah, can you raise the question to our wonderful speaker today, Dr. Ha Van Sinh? We can all hear you now.
Yes, I'm ready.
Yeah.
Dear Dr. Ha Van Sinh and all the teacher, I'm Đỗ Mạnh Cương. I'm from Lào Cai province. Teaching at a secondary school with a new textbook from grade 6 to grade 9. Wonder when we apply the teaching integrated skill in the next lesson. It often takes a lot of time to design activity for each part. For example, in the getting started part, we usually have 4 or 5 tasks with 3 or 4 skills. The lesson is so long for the teacher to guide students to do and understand all the tasks in 45 minutes. These tasks usually have new words, grammar, structure, and activity, or etc. So, what could you do to solve this problem? Dr. Ha Van Sinh.
Okay. I think that is a very practical question from the secondary school context. Well, I think if we've just watched listen to Miss Hai Ngoc, right, talking about her adaptation in a lesson in her context, I think that it is a very good illustration of how we deal with the problem mentioned by Mr. Cuong. Actually, the only thing that we can do is to try to adapt the textbook in such a way that we find it easy and more comfortable to our students. And it also depends a lot on the levels, on the motivation of our learners. Yes, if we have the problem with the time limit, then number one, what we can do is to ask the school authority to do something first, to give you more, allow you for more flexibility with your textbook adaptation. And if the principal of the school say, no, you cannot do that, you have to get stuck to what we asked you to do for the description of the curriculum, of the syllabus, and then it will be difficult for us. We need to try to persuade the principal that adaptation is necessary for the effectiveness and also the motivation of the learner. Okay, and if we have a good sympathy from the principal, what we can do is try to adapt it as an example from Ms. Hai Ngoc. That's the only thing that we can do, right? If the principal say no, you cannot do that, I can understand that it's quite a very big question to all the teachers. And again, we can see that also from the example from Hai Ngoc, we see that many different kind of qualities that we need to do to deal with the problem. Not just the negotiation with the principal, but also our qualities like classroom management. You can have a different ideas to adapt to provide some other kind of activities. But if we cannot manage the classroom very well, again, the time limit becomes more severe with our situation.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Dr. Ha Van Sinh, and thank you the question from Mr. Đỗ Mạnh Cương. And now I'd like to move on to another question because of the limited time. So sorry for that. And here, from the secretary, I received a question about the speaking skill. Dr. Ha Van Sinh, we have a question about speaking skill from Miss, I think so, and she asked whether there are pre, while, and post activities for speaking skill. Yeah.
I think the answer is yes, if we really want to do that.
Yeah. Dr. Ha Van Sinh, do you want to share any slides about that?
Well, let me see if I have the slide related to that or not. Okay.
Yeah. And also our teacher also asks some activities which are suitable for pre-speaking stage.
Oh, I have it here. I have it.
Post-speaking stage as well.
All right. Then I need to share, right?
Yes, please share.
Where is it? Yes, share here. Okay. Share. Yes, you see that on the screen, everyone?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Now talking about designing a skills integrated lesson with the speaking skill, I think it is similar to the designing and implementation of the other skills that we really want to focus. And if you want to first focus on the speaking skills, what we can do is first to look at the wild skills activities. It could be the kind of task required by the textbook or just your idea. Even you want the wild speaking activity is a kind of role play or real play or discussion, whatever. We also have a different kind of speaking skills. For example, eliciting ideas. If you want your student to do some kind of role playing about a holiday in a foreign country or a holiday in another city, for example, you can try to use some kind of pictures related to the places where the student may have a chance to go to or required by the wild speaking activity. So give them a chance to elicit the ideas with the pictures. Or you can ask them to listen to a similar conversation. As an example that I introduced from my presentation. Or you can ask them to watch a video or ask them to read a passage related to the topic of your wild speaking activities. So these are the pre-skills activities. And after that, after the wild speaking activity like a role playing, a real playing, a discussion, or the conversation, or a kind of project, you can move on to the post-skills activities. If that is a dialogue, you can ask the student to prepare to write for a similar dialogue. Or if they are talking about how to prepare for a holiday in a remote area. You can ask them to do a kind of project based, asking them to look for information about Lai Châu, for example, give them a situation in which they're going to visit Lai Châu, and then they have to read from the internet, from the other books to get information for their projects. So I think these are the idea for running a speaking activity. I also have taken an example from the textbook. This is from tiếng Anh chính again, and we can see that for the communication lesson, number one, make notes about yourself. That is an activity focusing on reading. And then number two, asking the student to work in pairs, turning, asking answer about the question. Again, you see that they have to speak in pair and group. So I think it is very lucky for all of us now, the new textbook being used in school now, written and designed from the skills integrated approach, so that they have a different kinds of pre and while and post activities for you to apply in your classroom. But the problem is, I'd like to get back to Hai Ngoc ideas about the adaptation of textbook. If we have a textbook like this, everything is ready. You have the pre, you have the while, you have the post. And if when you come into the classroom, you do exactly like this one, your student may feel very bored.
Yeah.
So then the adaptation of a textbook, even this textbook is designed with the integrated skills approach. But if you keep doing things from 1, moving to 2 to 3 like this one, and then you may fail because it is not very suitable for your student. And the students think that there's nothing new. Whenever I come into the classroom, the teacher start with exercise number 1, and then number 2, and then number 3 like that. So the adaptation suggested by Hai Ngoc is very necessary to give our students a chance to be motivated, to be surprised, and also to deal with, to be engaged in something that are at their level. Okay, so just from an idea about the speaking activities, I would like to get back to the idea of textbook adaptation. That is a very, very necessary for all of us to do. And if we never do textbook adaptation, you also find your teaching jobs very boring, because you have to do what the authors, the textbook asks you to do all the time. Textbook adaptation with flexibility and creativity is one of very important qualities that a teacher needs.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Ha Van Sinh, and thank you all the participants, because we have received lots of wonderful questions and wonderful sharing to the webinar today. But due to limited time, we cannot address all the questions here. So our secretary of the webinar, Ms. Tạ Thị Mai Hương, will upload all the questions to the forum so that the speaker and also the facilitators can address these questions after the webinar. And thank you all. And now we'd like to move on to the last part, that is the suggestion for follow-up activities from one of our facilitators today, that is Miss Nguyen Thị Thu Thao. Miss Nguyen Thị Thu Thao. I already unmute your question. Yeah.
Yes, okay. So thank you so much for all of your sharing from Dr. Ha Van Sinh and our great facilitators. I have some suggested idea for the application of the communicative language teaching approach after we listen to the workshop. So first of all, with any of you who are interested in writing the abstract for the conferences or the article for the journal, I have 2 approaches for you. The first one, after you investigate and understand about the CLT's approach, you can have 2 ways to research in your context. The first one is investigating the motivating factors contributing to the student attitude toward the CLT lesson that you apply in your classroom. The research can be conducted within your school, your classrooms, or maybe in connection with other teachers from other school, so that you can see the similarity and the differences. It could be a good idea so that you can have like a kind of report or investigation, and then you can share with teachers in the conference or in any kind of like workshop you attend. The second way, you can also investigate the motivating factors contributing to second or high school teachers' attitude. The first one is about the student attitude, and the second one is about the teacher's attitude toward the CLT lesson. So in here, we can have the contribution of the teacher at the secondary or high school across our country, so that we can compare and contrast. And also we can generalize the result, and we can suggest some recommendation to improve the teaching and learning situation. So I think it will be very like practical and easy to apply in our teaching context, because you all are the teachers in the secondary or high school, and also you have the same like concern about your teaching and learning, and you also want to apply the CLT approach in your teaching. So we can share from our experience. That about like conference and writing the article. And I also suggest something related to the local workshop, like the thing that we are doing right now. You also like, because you have experience to apply CLT lesson in your context, and if you are willing to share, you may like host or initiate the workshop among your school, or maybe in your like province, so that, you know, like any teacher who are interested in the topic or interested in the experience you want to share will come and join. And we also can share a lot of like difficulties and the question, and then also some suggestion. And I think it will have to you know, like first it will have to set up the resource, because we use the regional resources, not something like international, right? And also like, because it is a regional sharing, so we can have like we can have the event every month at least in your local school, and so that the teacher do not have to, you know, like travel, and also like they can manage the time. And it also have to create the local network so that it can have the support from other teachers from the same reason. So that's all of my sharing.
Yeah, thank you so much for all wonderful ideas. And I hope that after the webinar, the participants can also interact with our wonderful speaker and facilitators for more follow-up activities. All the questions and all the ideas, please share to the forum that Miss Mai Hyung has just shared to our Zoom chat. Thank you so much. And I think that it's time for me to move up to the wrap up for the webinar today. And now, let me see, how can I share this? Okay. Yeah, so thank you so much for the sharing from Dr. Ha Van Sinh, and the discussion from Dr. Ha Van Sinh, our facilitators, and the Q&A from our participants, also from our facilitators, and the suggestions, wonderful suggestions from Mr. Thao for follow-up activities. All the participants, please remember to enjoy and join our forum to share your ideas and to post more questions related to the webinars for follow-up activities. And now I'd like to move on to the parts that this is the link for the forum find on the slide, and also the link for the proof of attendance and feedback survey. All the participants, please go to the link for proof of attendance and feedback survey to do our quiz, and after that you may be eligible for an electronic certificate. So thank you so much all the participants for taking part, and thank you so much for the wonderful sharing from Dr. Ha Van Sinh and all the facilitators today. Thank you so much. Hopefully that you find the webinar useful to you, and you can also provide some suggestions for our webinar through the feedback survey. Please follow the link, and thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye bye, everybody. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
To the link here, you can also leave the webinar now, leave the meeting now. I will still leave the slide here for about 1 or 2 minutes for you to connect to the link to provide your proof of attendance by doing our quiz, and also provide some suggestions via our feedback survey. Thank you so much.